Welcome back, everyone, to the Bitcoin Business Bureau. I'm your host, as always, LitecoinLeader. Today, I'm going to remember to say at the top of the show, hopefully you like all this content, all these videos you're getting. Please like, share, subscribe, thumbs up. It's this one or this one, whichever one. Right-handers, you have a bias here. And also hit the notification bell in the corner so that you get these notifications of these videos when they come up. I try to keep them nice and short, 10 minutes or less, so it's very easily digestible. All the other extra stuff I normally say is scrolling across the bottom so you can see it. 2 AMAs a month, Patreon, all that cool stuff, Telegram. If you have questions, reach out to me. All right, what am I talking about today? Today we're talking about the national debt, how we got here, why it's there, and why it can never be paid off, okay? So I don't have dollar bills in front of me. I was going to do that. Let me pause, and I'll go get one. And we're back. Okay, the magic of editing. I'll figure that out after I record this. But first off, the dollar bill, right? It used to be once upon a time, before 1913, this didn't exist. And in its current form, it still didn't exist because this is a Federal Reserve note. They used to say other things on it. Here's a dollar, okay? The very first dollar was created in 1913, okay? And let me tell you how the process of creating that dollar. And if you don't know this process, I would really recommend, and I'm going to try to remember, put it up here, Mike Maloney's Hidden Secrets of Money. It's a 10-part series. It's great. Really good animation, really good commentary. Watch part 4. Okay, part 4 is where you want to lead off, believe it or not. Part 4, because it's happening today, and you will understand the banking system. And he explains it more than once. I know it's a half an hour, but you watch it a few times, you get it. And he does it a few times within the half hour. So it's pretty good. And there's credits at the end, so it's not really a full half hour. But let's just talk about how does the government create money? How does anybody create money? And corporations create money. Local, county, state, and national governments create money. But we're focusing on the national debt. So the U.S. decided to adopt this dollar system in 1913. And the first thing that they did is say, hey, we need money so we can spend on programs. So currency, not money. So what they did was, much like companies or local cities and states and counties, they issued a bond. And the bond is sold to the bank or another creditor. But let's just say that the bank buys it. Let's say it's a $1,000 bond. That's a $1,000 bond. The bond gets sold from the Treasury to the bank. Then the bank sells that for a small profit over to the Federal Reserve. Federal Reserve prints dollars because they don't have anything. The Federal Reserve is neither federal nor does it have any reserves. It has $0, but they are writing a check in the form of printing money. They will print $100, or whatever the numbers is. Let's just call it $100 across the process. So $100 bond comes from the Treasury to the bank. The bank sells it. Let's just say it's $100. They're going to turn a profit, but it's sell it for $100 over to the Federal Reserve, who buys it with $100. They just print it and gives it back to the bank. That bank then takes the $100 and uses that to pay the government for the bond in the first place. So it's kind of it all happens at once. Kind of, if you've ever done real estate simultaneous closing, it's kind of like that. There's a bond, there's an auction, and where did the money? So the bank has dollars. The dollars get transferred to the Treasury for the bond, but where the dollars come from? The Federal Reserve. So if you think about the process, it goes from Treasury to the banks to the Federal Reserve to the banks to the Treasury. That's the Treasury is where the currency comes from for the government to operate and spend in their programs and such. So the banks are just a middleman washing machine. They do take a profit, and the bigger banks own a piece of the Federal Reserve. If you dig into it, it's not commonly known. The ownership of the Federal Reserve is not clearly stated anywhere. You really have to dig for that. But it's been pretty well established that some of the major banks are, I won't name them, but the bigger banks, they have a piece of the Federal Reserve, and they make profits from that too. So they're all washing each other's hands. So the dollar, originally there was no dollar. So the dollar has to be repaid. The dollar is a debt note. Okay. So if I go and create a dollar, so if I create a bond, which is an IOU for $1, and I give it to the bank, the government that created that IOU expects the dollar back plus some interest. So to pay for that, that dollar has to be printed. So if I'm going to sell, I'm going to sell an IOU. Let's make this the IOU. It's IOU for $1, right? I IOU for $1, and I got to spend $1 for it. Well, the dollar didn't exist until 1913. So now it exists. I printed it. The Federal Reserve, by the Federal Reserve Act, said, yeah, that's good. That's as good as gold back then. And you take this and swap that, and all of a sudden, boom. But now, you've got the IOU and not the dollar. The dollar is at the government because they made the IOU. They sold it for you've got the IOU, but you gave them $1 for it because the IOU, you're going to get $1 plus interest. Where's the interest going to come from? There's only $1 in existence. They have to create another $1 to pay the interest. So now there's $2. That's why I need to go get the props. So after a while, there's $2. But now every dollar that's printed has a debt to it. So let's say, I'm going to say every dollar creates another $1 it's owed. So now this dollar created this dollar that owes it, but this dollar was created, and now these $2 over here. Now I need 4 over here to pay off these. Now those 4 created another 6. Now 6 had to pay off 12, and so on and so on. That's how it works. You can never, ever pay off the national debt. Let me explain that one more time. Every dollar is a debt instrument. I dropped them because they're worthless, but the dollar, upside down because it's also worthless, but this dollar is a debt instrument. So you owe this to someone. Ultimately, you owe this to the Treasury because they created that bond, and let's just say it's 3%, right? So you owe $1.03 after a year. The next year you owe $1.06 fractions, then $1.10 roughly in 3 years, and so on and so on and so on. Okay, it just compounds, adds up, and then these dollars that didn't exist, now all of a sudden there's this debt all over, and anyone who owned the bonds or sold them or was involved in the bonds needs dollars to pay off these debts. So that when you create more and more debt, and that's why they have a debt ceiling that they keep raising every year. We haven't heard about this in a couple of months, but it was a talk of it, I think, in January, and then it just kind of trickled away. But it's going to come back up this summer because I don't think they approved a higher debt ceiling. Right now it's $31 trillion. Trillion. Okay, it used to be, I mean, the numbers weren't even a trillion, and now it just escalates that much faster. But the number is 31 trillion. To give you a concept, if I had every Bitcoin on the planet right now, I would have $500 billion roughly. I would need 62 times all of the Bitcoin that exist just to pay off the U.S. national debt, and that keeps escalating. And that doesn't exist. Like you don't have. There's only 21 million Bitcoin. You don't have 210 Bitcoin. Or 210 million. You don't have 2.1 billion. You don't have that many. You don't have a billion Bitcoin. It doesn't happen. So guess what happens with fixed assets? Like if you want Bitcoin to cover all these debts, the Bitcoin value must go up because the debts are so high, or you must write off the debt. So that's what happens. Is that these debt instruments that are just all over the planet now have been flooding the planet for 108, almost 110 years now. These debts are coming due, and there's not enough dollars out there to pay them off. And even if they created them with those dollars, that devalues the dollar again, and lowers the purchasing power of that dollar, and it just goes up again. It's just the debt you can never pay it off. I want to be so clear. Even if you had every dollar that's ever been printed and went to the Treasury right now and said, I want to pay off the national debt for the United States, they said, yeah, but how are you paying off the interest? See, the interest is like $500 billion now. Okay. And that's on top of the 31 trillion that had already existed. So just to pay the interest, you're paying dollars. You're borrowing from the future because you print these dollars, and you're borrowing from the future value because you're lowering the value at the present. It's a very complicated system. They want it to be very complicated. Again, I really recommend go watch Mike Maloney's History of Hidden Secrets of Money, Part 4. It's really good. I'll put the link up there. But that $31 trillion, just every time they talk about the debt ceiling and paying things off and how we're going to get out of the national debt, remember, it's not going to happen. It can't happen because there's not enough dollars in the universe to pay it all off unless they started using some other assets, and they don't want to. This is a financial system, not an economy, that's meant to borrow from the future, take and give to the Federal Reserve and the owners of the Federal Reserve as much as possible. So What are your thoughts? Hopefully I explained that reasonably well. Again, check out Mike's video. It's very, very well done, very well explained. And check out the rest of the parts too. They're very good too. But lots said today. It's 10 minutes-ish. Hopefully you liked it. Leave me a comment down below. Like, share, subscribe, all that cool stuff. Send this to someone that may not understand the banking system and understand what a fraud that is. And when I start talking about derivatives, which might be another video, we'll go later another time. But leave a comment, like, share, subscribe. Really look forward to reading all your comments. All that said today, I'm going to close the drawer in the bureau, say follow leader. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.